Welcome to Left, Right, Center, where we are covering Colorado politics first on CBS News Colorado. I'm political reporter Shaun Boyd. We start with fallout from a New York jury's conviction of Donald Trump. The former president and current Republican presidential nominee is now a convicted felon. He was found guilty of 34 charges related to falsifying business records before the 2016 election in an attempt to disguise payments to an adult film star he allegedly had an affair with. Trump, who plans to appeal, faces up to 4 years in prison, but legal experts say he will likely receive probation since this is a first-time offense. Joining me are analysts, Republican Dick Wadhams and Democrat Mike Dino. So, Dick, Trump said, of course, the decision was rigged, and his supporters agree. But what about these unaffiliated, undecided voters out there? Will they buy this, do you think?
Well, they're the people, Shaun, who they don't like either candidate. I mean, they don't like Trump, they don't like Biden, and many of them won't even vote in the presidential race. Those that do, I don't think this will have any substantial impact long term on Trump. They're just going to have to decide who they like least among these two terribly flawed candidates. And I think so. I'm not sure. This is early enough. I'm not sure by the time we hit November it's going to make any difference.
That they'll care if he's a convicted felon or not.
I'm not sure it will.
So, Mike, even before this case went to trial, Trump was using it to court black voters, especially, saying like them, he's being unfairly persecuted by the criminal justice system. He, a white, rich man. And yet a poll by the Wall Street Journal found 30% of black men support him. So in a race so close, that could really shift things. That could tilt this race one way or another. Do you think this verdict impacts this at all?
Well, I think we're in uncharted territory. You've said that, Shaun, and it's hard to say. I mean, what will happen in the swing states? Certainly, North Carolina has a large African-American population, as does Georgia, and so the President Biden will have to pay attention to that, and he has been in the last couple weeks, has been out courting African-American voters. But Trump's been skirting the law for a long time. That's why he wanted to stay in office, so he could avoid being convicted. I mean, he loves being the villain. He's playing into it. I mean, he's kind of a combination of the Joker and the Penguin, in Gotham City, and people are gonna some people are gonna find that appealing.
Yeah, but how does he relate to black men? I mean, a rich white guy, and yet in these 7 swing states, 30% of them saying they'll support him.
Well, I think it's a tenuous connection, and I think as we get toward November, people are really going to think about, do we want a felon in the White House?
Yeah. So, Dick, this trial involves some sordid, seedy testimony. So I got to wonder how it's going to impact evangelicals and female voters, who we know are very critical in elections, outvote men.
Yeah. I think evangelicals came to their conclusion a long time ago. I mean, the Access Hollywood tape back in 2016 was bad enough, and it's been a lot of stuff come out since then. So I think evangelicals have decided, okay, he's with us on the issues, we'll tolerate his bad behavior and his disgusting behavior. In terms of women, I think that's where Trump has a problem, because I think there are a lot of Republican women who normally vote Republican, and they just don't like this stuff. And you're right, it was seedy, it's tawdry, it's repulsive, and it's wrong, his behavior. And so that's where. And in the suburbs, I think that there are a lot of Republican women who might say, no, I'm not going to do it this time. So that's the problem he's got.
Mike, Trump will be sentenced just days before the Republican National Convention, where he will officially become the nominee. So will that impact the convention at all, do you think? And what about Democrats' convention? They now say that they are going to nominate Biden via a virtual roll call?
Yeah, no, a lot of weird stuff, and it will only get weirder. Let's just put it that way. I do think that Trump being sentenced right before the Republican convention adds to the drama of it all, and he'll make as much of it as he can. For Biden, it's a technicality. In Ohio, the nominating convention for the Democrats is after the deadline in Ohio to get on the ballot. So the Dems have to do a virtual roll call in order to get him on the ballot in time in Ohio. And though he doesn't have a great chance of winning Ohio, nonetheless, you want to be, spend some resources there so the President Trump has to do it.
But do you think it's related to them? Are they worried about him, a gaffe maybe at the convention? Are they worried about protesters at the convention? Or is this really just
No,
Ohio?
it's the technicality in Ohio.
Okay.
And they tried to see if they could get it fixed in Ohio, the legislature and the governor, but it sounded like the Secretary of State didn't want to go along with it.
Wow.
And so the Dems were kind of put in a corner to say, all right, we got to nominate him. And so he can be on the Ohio ballot. So they'll do all the fancy stuff at the convention, though. Yeah. People get tired of those roll call things because everybody's got to talk about their favorite lobster or something.
Now, but Shaun, there is a lot of concern about 1968 being replicated, and I do think the Democrats are using this. That's a legitimate problem they've got, Mike. But I think they're worried about these Palestinian protesters showing up and marring their convention. I really do.
And I agree.
And they need Mike Dino up there running this thing. Is what I think.
Well, the Republicans don't want to move their protest area way away from the arena.
It should be
they're worried too.
It should be in the next state.
Well, a number of Colorado's elected leaders were quick to respond to the verdict. Governor Polis said the guilty convictions from a jury of his peers show the former president lacks the moral capacity to lead our country. Meanwhile, Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert called the verdict a sham, saying, as we all knew, this was always about election interference and stopping President Trump from winning his rightful re-election to the White House. And Congresswoman Boebert is fighting to stay in Congress. How all 6 candidates responded to my questions during a CBS Colorado congressional debate. That's next. Welcome back to Left, Right, Center. Candidates in one of the most hotly contested primaries in the state took the stage for a debate hosted by CBS News Colorado this past week. 6 Republicans are running for the seat vacated by Ken Buck, including Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. The election is just over 3 weeks away, and Boebert is considered the front runner despite switching from Congressional District 3 to CD4, which is more conservative. Still, only one of the other candidates even attempted to take her down during the debate.
We've seen how Lauren Boebert would represent us, abandoning her neighbors in CD3.
Right out of the gate, radio talk show host Deborah Flora attacked Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, using her opening statement to accuse her of carpetbagging.
I may have a change of scenery in life, but our values here in Eastern Colorado remain the same, and that's what I'm going to fight for and deliver.
Among the issues Boebert says she's delivered on is water. Both she and State Representative Richard Holtorf say rural water rights need to be protected from growing urban communities.
And I don't believe in buy and dry, where municipalities buy land and the water rights and then they take that out of production.
On energy, the candidates were largely opposed to any kind of subsidies.
That's not the role of the government, to create winners and losers.
Almost all also supported a proposal by former President Trump to reclassify many civil service workers as political appointees, dismantle federal agencies like the EPA, and move other federal agencies outside of D.C.
And put them where they are most closest to the people they affect, rather than in the swamp.
They also largely agreed with a proposal by the former president to designate drug cartels in Mexico as terrorist organizations and use the military against them. And all but Holtorf said they would end birthright citizenship. Some were open to more work visas if they were merit-based.
I've actually spoken to Colin, who owns a landscaping business up in northern Colorado, and he basically spends thousands on visa applications. He basically takes forever for him to get here. They
all support repealing Obamacare, passing a balanced budget amendment, and keeping the 2017 tax cuts that cost $2.5 trillion. All but former state senator Jerry Sonnenberg were in favor of raising the retirement age, and some were open to basing Social Security on need. Boebert, the outlier when it came to foreign aid. She was the only one who opposed aid for Ukraine, and while she supports Israel, she voted against a bill that delivered aid to Israelis and Palestinians.
And the Republican Jewish coalition called her by name and said that any Republican who did not vote for this last aid to Israel should not even call themselves pro-Israel.
And it is disgusting that I would have a Republican opponent who would want to send $9 billion to Hamas.
So, Mike, did Flora score any points?
Well, I talked to her after the forum. She felt she did. The ballots drop next week.
Yeah.
And she thought, we got to take off the gloves now. There has to be some contrast here. And so she felt pretty good about the way she approached it. And, I agree. I mean, if you keep it pleasant and happy, it favors the Congresswoman. And so folks have to, provide a contrast or else it'll be too late.
I'm surprised the others didn't.
I was too, and I think part of it is that it's probably easier for a woman to go after a woman than a man to attack a woman.
Yeah.
Dick and I know that that's kind of one of the commandments of politics, and particularly debates.
Although as more women get into politics, maybe that's changing.
Yeah.
Dick, debates really don't move the needle much, if at all. But as Mike noted, the election is right around the corner. Right. So didn't you expect the candidates to be a little more feisty on this?
I did, and I do think Flora scored points. I really do. And frankly, I was a little bewildered by Boebert's response that a fellow Republican attacking her on that Israel vote. The fact is, only 20 Republicans joined Boebert in opposing that. About 200 Republicans voted for it. So she was way off on the fringe on that vote. She's got a floor and a ceiling, just about the same thing, of about 33-35%. And the fact is, unless there's a dynamic change in this race, she's going to win that primary. So I think what Flora did was right. And whether she can break out of the pack, I don't know. But I think she did herself a lot of good.
So, Mike, a lot of the answers to the questions were pretty predictable, but I was surprised by the answer to one of the questions when I asked them about whether they would want to repeal the 22nd Amendment that would allow Trump to serve more than 2 terms. Yeah. None of them said that they would do that.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, I thought at least 1 or 2 of them like to see him, be, in perpetuity. Yeah, and maybe they just didn't understand the question or the 22nd Amendment or something like that. But I was surprised. Dick and I were sitting there going, "Wow, nobody raised their hand."
Yeah, right. Dick, the candidates largely agreed with Trump's proposals.
Oh, yeah.
Including sending military aid to Mexico to deal with the cartels and dismantling government agencies.
Yeah.
We talked about that in my story, including the FBI and the EPA. And all but one of them supported something that Trump doesn't, which is raising the retirement age for Social Security. What is up with
that? What that tells me, Shaun, is those candidates are taking the problem with Social Security much more seriously than Trump is. I mean, I think Trump just has this knee-jerk political reaction. I'm not going to touch Social Security.
Most politicians say that.
They do, but I will tell you, if we don't do something, it's going to go broke. Medicare and Social Security will. And so they're going to have to deal with that. So I was actually impressed that group of Republicans said, no, we want to do something serious about this.
Right. I mean, as I noted, too, I mean, the trustees for both of these programs have said 2035 and 2036 are when these programs will no longer be insolvent. So if Congress doesn't act, I mean, we're really in trouble.
Yeah, that's when I turned 70.
Well, Douglas County Republicans are weighing in on a different race, one you wouldn't expect them to pay any attention to. It's between 2 Democrats vying for a state legislative seat. That's not even in Douglas County. It's in Denver. The Douglas County Republicans posted this about the incumbent candidate on social media. Who is Tim Hernandez? 27 years old, single, no kids, no military service, no business experience, UNC grad 2019, appointed as state rep 2023, one of 6 #Democratic Socialists of America in the #Colorado legislature, Hamas supporter, and his primary opponent is Cecilia Espinoza. And told you where to find her. So, Dick, what is going on?
I think that Hernandez should count this as a political contribution to his campaign. I mean, to have a bunch of Republicans from Douglas County attacking him, and frankly, none of those hurt him in that district. I think it was a well-intentioned but very clumsy attempt by some well-meaning Republicans to try to impact defeating a Democratic Socialist. it missed the mark.
Right. Remember when Democrats took the ad out, Tancredo, saying he was too he was running for governor, and oh, don't vote for him. He's way too conservative, right?
Helped him.
Yeah, it helped him, right? And that was what it was meant to do. That's why I don't get this.
I don't either.
So Mike, you live in this House District 4, and you received a rather deceptive, maybe, a mailer regarding this race too, asking voters to re-elect Representative Hernandez, even though he was appointed to the seat by a relatively small Democratic vacancy committee. Do voters know? Do they care how he got there?
I don't think voters know. I mean, it's that's part of what the campaign is about. And I've lived there my whole life, never seen anybody in Douglas County care about Democratic politics. So I think it's kind of great to, that these suburban folks are, waking up to us urban people up here in Northwest Denver, the North Side as we call it. But no, it's and he can, this was an independent mailer, so they playing a little fast and loose with the truth. But he served in the legislature this past term, this past session. So he wants to look like the incumbent. Yeah. And that carries some weight. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you make of the Douglas County Republicans weighing in on this?
I don't know.
Do they want him to win the primary? Do they actually think, like, if he wins the primary, that then maybe they can beat him?
Well, I don't know. I talked after the Channel 4 forum. I talked with Douglas County Commissioner George Teal. I said, George, what's up? He disavowed anything. He says, I don't know what's happened there.
It's just so strange. Well, finally, some state legislators apparently pulled a fast one at the end of session. The Colorado Sun reports that they amended an election bill in the final hours of the session to ensure that Colorado won't move to ranked choice voting anytime soon. That's where voters rank candidates, regardless of party, and then there's a series of eliminations that happen until one candidate has more than 50% of the vote. According to the Sun, even if voters approve ranked choice voting, the bill would delay implementation by years and maybe prevent it altogether. Supporters of a ballot measure to enact ranked choice voting in Colorado call the move a thinly veiled attempt to silence Colorado voters and thwart a citizens' initiative before voters even get to weigh in. So, Mike, the governor has not signed this bill into law yet, and there's pressure from both sides on this. Will he, do you think?
I don't know. He's vetoed 6 bills already. Last year he vetoed 10. So he's got a few more to go if he really wants to. The bill does set a threshold of 12 communities in Colorado having ranked choice voting. We may be at half already. So, the governor might look at it and go, hey, just give it a little more time to percolate. It is a different concept for people. I'm not sure he'll veto it.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know if he's really weighed in on the whole ranked choice voting. I mean, it is one of those bipartisan things. You've got Democrats and Republicans working on this ballot measure, including this Republican here.
Well, and the thing is, if Democrats think that Republicans are going to gain any edge by ranked choice voting, that might be a reason why he wouldn't sign it.
Right, right. So, Dick, you're doing some consulting on this campaign. Yes. Supporters think that ranked choice voting will help with the hyperpartisanship that we see in politics today. Do you think that something like this will pass in Colorado?
I do. And I think that's why the legislature did what they did, which was to head off the people's will on this initiative. I think it's reprehensible that these legislators would, out of fear of the people voting for this, enacted something that would delay it and maybe even kill it. That's I know of no precedent for this. And Polis is in a bad position. He should veto this. And there are a lot of things in that bill that the clerks want, and I understand that. They can pass those reforms very, very quickly when the legislature comes back in January. He should veto this, and he should send a clear message. This is wrong to take away the choice of the people to vote for this, and that's what they're doing.
I think this has happened actually before. Remember the property tax measure that was going to the ballot a while back, and they did some last-minute
some
bill
poison pill
that
type stuff.
did some only hotels and such would be impacted by it. So it's not the first time.
Yeah, but this is pretty blatant.
But it's this time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, something he's working on.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for watching Left, Right, Center. We'll see you next week.